I'm Kylene.
And I'm Jonathan. We are the Provident Preppers. Today we're talking about a very important subject, one of long-term grid down situation.
And it was prompted by the release of two studies, one from the military and the other one
from the President's Infrastructure Council.
And they both urge Americans to prepare for a long-term grid down situation. Could you survive without electricity for 6 months or perhaps a year? Do you even know what that really entails?
It's pretty daunting, actually. We are the most technologically advanced nation on Earth, and that's a great thing, but it also comes with a high penalty if we lose that. Everything that makes our life great is, generally speaking, based off of electronics and SCADA systems and all these things that, if interrupted, can create tremendous havoc for our lives.
And put us back into the world that they lived 200 years ago. The problem is, we're not set up to live that way. So today, we're going to go through and teach you exactly how to prepare to survive a long-term grid down situation.
Let's start by talking about water storage. Of course, water is absolutely a critical part of our lives in so many ways. We need drinking water, we need cooking water, we need it for sanitation, we need it for just a myriad of purposes. We recommend that every family and every person have at least 2 gallons per person per day for at least 2 weeks as a minimum. That just buys you time to be able to find other resources and to get some other things lined up after that water's gone.
Yeah, but if you have the ability, if you think you're going to be out of power for 6 months or a year, you really want to focus on storing as much water as you possibly can.
Absolutely. You can visit the Provident Prepper, How to Store Water for Emergency Preparedness, and you can learn a great deal there.
Another thing, you might want to Google the Provident Prepper, Emergency Water, 17 Potential Sources. And in this, we review exactly where you can find water in an emergency situation.
Now you want to keep in mind that water is very heavy. So you don't want to have to transport that very far, especially if you don't have any equipment or vehicles to do that with. So you need to just be aware of how heavy that is and figure out the best way for you to find water and to transport water so that you can make it safe for you to drink.
And then once you find that water, chances are it might not be safe to drink. So if you Google the Provident Prepper, Making Water Safe to Drink, 7 disinfection techniques, you'll find 7 great ways to be able to disinfect your water. The other thing that it's really important that you have is a really good filter that will remove both chemical contaminants and biological contaminants. And then the next thing we need to focus on is food storage. So right now, food is incredibly cheap and easy to get. It makes sense to stock up on food and have between a 6-month and a year supply. What we recommend that you do is store 3 months worth of food that you eat every day, whatever it is, the cereals, the canned food, the hamburger helper, the boxed meals, whatever it is that you eat on a regular basis. We encourage you to have at least 3 months of that.
After you have that 3-month supply or more, then focus on some other long-term storage items like wheat and rice and beans. These are things that will store for many, many years and take care of your family, but are relatively cheap.
Yeah, very, very cheap. And then you can add the dehydrated and the freeze-dried foods to that to make it a little bit better. But the basics are really important for their caloric content. Go ahead and Google the Provident Prepper, hunger insurance. Don't get caught without it. And you'll learn what to do and how to store it and why it's really important. The other post that you might want to check out is 8 food storage enemies and how to slay them. And in this one, we teach you how to really store your food so that it will last that 25 years that we would like it to last. One important aspect of food storage is to make sure that you develop an edible landscape, and that in the landscape that you have around your home, you grow as much edible food as possible. Plant a fruit tree or a nut tree, some raspberry bushes or grapevines or anything that you can do so that you have some food growing around your home that provides you with the nutrients that only fresh foods can.
And how about just a potted plant that's maybe sitting on a balcony?
Yeah.
Anything that you can do will make you healthier and will provide for your long-term food needs. You think about the victory gardens of World War II. What a blessing for people to be able to grow food and to have that food to sustain their families. We'll talk for just a minute or two now about alternative cooking. I think we're all pretty spoiled. We like our gas ranges or our electric stoves. If these are gone, we've got to find some other way to cook our food. And we've done some fantastic research and a lot of experimenting. We have a post and a video that you may want to look at. The video is the Provident Prepper Emergency Cooking 12 Family Favorites. We encourage you to go and look at that. One other that you may want to look at is to Google the Provident Prepper, Safe Indoor Emergency Cooking Solutions.
That's right, because carbon monoxide is a really big deal and it's very, very dangerous. So you want to make sure that you understand clearly how to cook indoors safely so that you don't make your family sick with carbon monoxide.
We also encourage you to look at our post on the Provident Prepper. It's called Canned Heat, Safe Fuel for Indoor Emergency Cooking. We have provided a wealth of information, and there's other information out there that you can get, but it is important that you take some time and figure out how you will accomplish this important task.
The next one is alternative lighting. When the power's out, it gets very dark very quickly, and it can be a really dangerous situation. So consider how you're going to light your world. We don't really recommend candles because of the open flame. We've found from personal experience that it can be very dangerous. So go ahead and find what light sources you like. We really recommend the ones that are rechargeable. The solar ones are fantastic.
Exactly. They're very cheap. You can buy them very inexpensively. You can get headlamps, you can get lanterns, you can get flashlights. We keep several of those in our south window all the time. They're fully charged and ready to go. So this is not something that's going to be difficult to solve. You can get these relatively inexpensively and they'll take very good care of your family. Now let's talk just a little bit about alternative heating. Have you ever been really, really cold? It's not a fun feeling. It's not something that I want to do ever again. I've been extremely cold, on the verge of hypothermia several times, and on the verge of frostbite several times, and it's not a good place to be. We want to encourage you to look at your situation and figure out how you will keep your family warm. That's not something that we normally have to think about because we have very reliable electrical and natural gas supplies that take care of this for us, but there is that potential based on these reports that we're seeing that this could be your reality, and we need to figure out how to take care of that.
So Google the Provident Prepper best alternative heat sources to use during a power outage, and you'll see some of our very favorite alternative heating devices.
So we have a post, Surviving a Winter Power Outage, How to Stay Warm. We encourage you to take a look at that.
And you'll see what a wimp I was when we turned off our power in January.
Yeah, it was cold.
It was cold.
Really, really cold.
Sanitation. Now, we don't very often think about this because when you flush, everything just goes away and it's really nice. But when the power is out, especially in an extended long-term situation, well, chances are you won't be able to do that. So we have an article called Prepping for Basic Emergency Sanitation. So just Google the Provident Prepper, Prepping for Basic Emergency Sanitation, and you will learn more than you ever wanted to know about emergency sanitation.
That's right. And I think, as we mentioned, so many of these things we just take for granted. But when that power goes down, if your sewer system can't be operable, there will be considerable problems. If you're fortunate enough to have a septic system, you might be in a pretty good place. But those who rely on the city sewer systems, this could be a very, very challenging situation and very dangerous as well. So let's talk a minute about medical. No power means limited medical, and again, this is one of those things that we just take for granted, that we can get medical attention fairly quickly and relatively cheaply, and our problems can be fixed. But in a crisis situation, you may not have access to medical attention, and you may not be able to get those things that are really needed when you need them. So you need to take provisions and do some learning on your own to make sure that you can cover this.
Another thing that's really important is that you invest in your own health and make it a priority to be well and strong, because your chances of surviving a grid down type situation where life is harder will significantly be improved if you can be healthy. So work on that.
Why don't you also go to our Provident Prepper site, and we have a couple of articles on there that I think would be useful for you. Prepping tools for medical care, and also one on antibiotic stockpiling. Two critical topics that you can take care of in large measure if you've done a little bit of planning.
And the next category is communications. The ability to send and receive information is huge. If you don't have your computer or your cell phone, think about how crippled you could be.
Especially in today's world, it's really just something that we just rely on every day.
So you want to make sure that you have some good backup devices that will enable you to be able to communicate.
Maybe you're an amateur radio operator or want to become one, or at least you can have some GMRS or FRS radios that you can connect with your family. Some of these have fairly limited range, but if you live fairly close to some that you love, it's a great way to communicate.
And the last category that we want to talk about is protection. So stressful events will bring out the best in some people and the worst in others. And we want to work together as a neighborhood and as a community so that we can all do really well and thrive whenever anything happens.
Exactly right. But we need to prepare for possible situations where things may not be as pretty and happy as we would like. We have a post that we would encourage you to look at on this also. The Provident Prepper, Protecting Yourself from the Darker Elements of Society. We encourage you to look at that and create an action plan so that you can handle these kinds of situations.
So that's a great place to start. If you just go through each one of these categories and make some really good progress, you'll be amazed how far you will be able to come in preparing to live through a long-term grid down situation.
Exactly right. We've been acquainted with some individuals and seen some things on YouTube where you're encouraged to make sure you have food and water, and that's great. And also some encouragement to have guns to protect that. And we don't quite subscribe to that. We recognize that there may be difficult situations, but for the most part, we want to make sure that we share with others. We want to bless the lives of others. And so that is our plan, but we have to have a backup just in case.
Yes, it's important. And there may be a time when those weapons are highly valuable and when we need to use those, but we choose to use those as a last resort.
And now for the question of the day. Have you thought about how you will be able to take care of yourself and your family and loved ones in the event of a long-term power outage? Maybe 6 months, maybe a year, maybe more. In the event that those transformers do go down, it can be up to 2 or 3 years before they can be replaced, sometimes in the best of situations.
And thanks for being part of the solution.